The rain came without warning, thick, heavy, and relentless. Roads that were clear minutes ago now looked like shallow rivers, swallowing every trace of dust and comfort. Miles away from the city, a black luxury SUV stood stranded at the edge of a rural highway. Its hood steamed, the engine coughing its last breath. Inside, a woman in her early 30s sat gripping the steering wheel, drenched in frustration and fear. Her phone blinked its last bar of battery, then died, leaving her alone amid gray skies and endless rain. Her name was Clara Montgomery, CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the state. A woman known for her calm under pressure, now sitting helpless in the middle of nowhere. If you believe that kindness can change destinies and that everyone deserves a second chance, then pause for a moment. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. This story might just remind you why. Miles away in a small wooden house tucked behind the pine trees, Eli Turner struggled to calm his 5-year-old daughter Mila, who was crying over a broken toy. He had been fixing it for an hour, his calloused hands working gently, the rain beating against the roof. Life hadn't been kind to Eli. A single dad for 3 years, he worked 2 part-time jobs, mechanic by day, grocery loader by night. His wife, Ava, had passed away in a car crash, leaving him with memories that never stopped hurting and a daughter who asked questions he couldn't always answer. When the thunder grew louder, Eli decided to head out to check the fences near the road, worried that the storm might bring down a tree again. He tucked Mila under a blanket, promised her pancakes in the morning, and stepped into the storm. His truck, old and dented, rumbled to life as he drove through the wet darkness. That's when he saw it. The black SUV half off the road, hazard lights blinking faintly like a dying heart. He stopped without a second thought. Clara stepped out of her car, shoes sinking into mud, her designer coat soaked through. For the first time in years, she looked unsure. Her voice trembled slightly when Eli approached. He looked rugged, tall, bearded, dressed in a flannel shirt and worn jeans. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked. His tone firm but kind. She nodded, embarrassed. "Xar died. My phone too." He glanced at the engine, then at her. "Hop in, I'll get you somewhere dry. It's not safe to stay here." She hesitated, then followed him into the truck. The heater hummed softly, and for the first few minutes, silence filled the space. She looked out at the rain, her mind flashing back to her board meeting that morning. The investors' doubts, the layoff she had to approve, the loneliness of success. She had left the city to clear her head, not expecting fate to trap her here. But there was something oddly grounding about the stranger beside her. His hands looked like they'd carried a lifetime of hard work, and his voice held the warmth of someone who understood struggle. When they reached his home, Mila came running to the door, her tiny feet tapping against the wooden floor. "Daddy!" she cried. Eli lifted her up and smiled faintly. "We've got a guest." "Sweetheart." Clara smiled gently, kneeling to meet the girl's curious eyes. "Hi there," she said softly. Mila's shyness melted when Clara offered a small origami crane she found in her purse, a habit she had kept since childhood to calm herself during stress. Mila grinned, clutching it like treasure. Eli offered Clara a towel and a cup of tea. She tried to thank him but stumbled over her words, unaccustomed to being helped. She wasn't used to small houses, old furniture, or homemade food that smelled of warmth instead of perfection. But somehow it all felt safe. That night, as the storm raged outside, she sat with Eli while Mila slept. They spoke little, yet every silence between them said more than words could. He told her he used to be a mechanic in the city before life took a turn. His wife's death had broken him, and he left everything behind to raise his daughter quietly. She listened, realizing how different his world was from hers, yet how deeply she related to his loneliness. When she asked why, he still smiled despite everything. He said, "And because she needs me too, and because storms don't last forever." A morning came clear and golden. The rain had stopped, and so had Clara's car engine. After Eli spent 2 hours fixing it, she offered to pay him, but he refused. "You already said thank you," he said simply. Before leaving, she bent down to hug Mila, who handed her a crayon drawing of their 3 faces. "Come again," the little girl whispered. For a moment, Clara didn't know why her throat tightened. She promised she would. Back in the city, Clara returned to her office. The glass walls, the endless emails, the weight of leadership pressing on her shoulders. Yet, something inside her had changed. She thought about Eli often, his simplicity, his quiet strength, his love for his daughter. Weeks later, her company announced a new community project to support rural families affected by job losses. When she reviewed the list of applicants for local repair contracts, one name made her pause. Ely Turner. He had applied without knowing who would see his proposal. His letter was handwritten, humble, filled with hope that the project might help him provide a stable future for Mila. Clara read it 3 times, tears welling as she whispered, "Fate, you work in mysterious ways." She approved his application without revealing who she was. But she couldn't resist visiting the site when construction began. When Ely saw her step out of a company vehicle in her formal suit, his jaw nearly dropped. He began, and she smiled, finishing for him, "Your boss, apparently." At first, he felt embarrassed, thinking she might have pitied him. But her eyes told him otherwise. "You didn't help me because of who I am," she said gently. "You helped because that's who you are, and I don't forget kindness like that." The days turned into weeks as they worked side by side. Clara spent more time in that small town than in her office, finding peace in moments she hadn't felt in years, sharing coffee at Ely's porch, helping Mila with her drawings, laughing at things she had forgotten were funny. Ely began to open up too. He told her about his fears, his guilt over not saving his wife that night, his struggle to be both father and mother to Mila. And she, for the first time, admitted how lonely her success had become, how power had built walls around her heart. One afternoon, while helping repaint a fence, Clara asked him softly, "Do you ever think life gives us second chances?" He looked at her, the sun catching the edges of her hair, and said, "Sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes it sends you someone who makes you believe again." As the weeks went by, whispers spread in the small town about the CEO and the single dad who spent every lunch break together. But they didn't care. Their bond was quiet, real, and built on gratitude that neither could explain fully. Mila adored Clara and often asked if she could call her Auntie, which made Ely smile and Clara blush every time. Months later, the project was complete. The company invited Ely to the city headquarters for an appreciation ceremony. He brought Mila along, who wore her favorite yellow dress. Standing on the stage, surrounded by hundreds, Ely froze when Clara stepped up to speak. "Some people change your life without even meaning to," she said, her eyes glancing toward him. "They remind you what kindness truly means." This man didn't just fix engines, he fixed hearts. The applause that followed wasn't just for his work. It was for the quiet, selfless soul who had unknowingly changed the life of the woman standing before him. When the crowd faded and the night grew calm, Clara knelt beside Mila, whispering, "Your dad's a hero, you know." Mila smiled proudly. "You like him, don't you?" she teased innocently, and both adults laughed softly, their hearts saying the things their lips hadn't yet. In the months that followed, Clara found excuses to visit again. Birthdays, small town fairs, or simply checking progress. But each visit brought her closer to something she hadn't known she needed. One spring morning, she showed up at their doorstep with a simple picnic basket. "No business," she said shyly. "Just lunch, and maybe something real." Ely looked at her for a long moment, then smiled, the same way he did that stormy night. "You sure about stepping into my world?" he asked. She nodded, eyes glistening. "I think it's where I was meant to end up." They walked down to the riverside, Mila chasing butterflies ahead of them. The air smelled of hope and new beginnings, for a man who thought his life was over, and for a woman who thought she had everything. Fate had given them both the same gift, a reason to believe in love again. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps more people discover stories that remind us the world still runs on compassion. And before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe that helping a stranger can change your life forever? Because sometimes, one act of kindness doesn't just rescue someone, it rescues you too.